that introduction right at the start, Paul Sirenen, and that was your introduction to the Aussies at that level, their introduction to you, wasn't it? And quite a memorable moment for his chin, at least. It
was the biggest game I'd ever played in to that point, and I'd say 6 or 8 months before I was at Oldham. Prior to that, I'd spent some time in Australia playing for the Wine Kangaroos in the country division out there, and I'd learned a little bit about the mentality. I'd learned a little bit about their frailties, really, because Tom will tell you, and Flan, who went over and played for the Tigers, we can match him in the forwards. We've got, I still think to this day, we've got the beating of him in the forwards and the concentration levels that Scully talked about there. That's what we need to develop, and it's hardened and it's forged in steel by constant competition. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at those two and Iestyn at the side of me. How lucky was I back in the day to have played with Kevin Sinfield, Paul Sculthorpe and Iestyn Harris on a regular basis. So I think they always said, don't they, you've got to be careful who you surround yourself with, because you become a product of the people that you're around all the time, and I was really blessed to be around some good ones.
And, you know, we're joking a bit about your style in there, but every team needs an enforcer, don't they? And every team against, you know, tough opposition, it's your job in the pack, isn't it, to make yourself known. But as we saw with Moz, if you get too carried away, you know, it can go wrong, can't it? So on a day like that, you know, how do you get it right, that you're in the face, but especially today, within the rules?
Well, my mum and dad are with me tonight, and my mum and dad gave me a couple of pieces of really good advice. My mum said, if you find a job that you love and you care about, you'll never do a day's work in your life. And I'm lucky, I'm blessed that everything I do I really, really enjoy, and I throw myself into it. But my dad's piece of advice, I think, stood me in good stead, because he said, listen, always, 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 always get your retaliation in first.
So that was your introduction to them. You got a 2-match ban for that. This is 1994. The Aussies are over on tour. And you serve your ban. 4 weeks later, it's your Great Britain debut at Wembley, isn't it?
It was unbelievable for me. And I remember, and I wouldn't have played rugby league were it not for, I think, Dennis Maders at Saddleworth Rangers at the time. I later went to Waterhead and played under Roy Jewett. But a guy who many people in the room would know, Fred Lawton, who was my school teacher. And I loved playing all sports, but I gravitated towards them when I left school. And Waterhead was my spiritual home. And then I played for Oldham. I learned about, I suppose at Oldham it's about representing your community. It's about being able to stand up tall no matter what the scoreboard says. And then I went to play for Wigan. And after 8 games with Wigan, after that performance and an injury to Kelvin Skerratt, I got given an opportunity at Wembley, and I was beside myself because I looked at the team. It had Jonathan Davis, Jason Robinson, Gary Connolly, Alan Hunt, Martin Afire, Sean Edwards, some absolutely unbelievable players. Darryl Powers at standoff, and Carl Harrison, Lee Jackson, Chris Joint was a prop, Dennis Betts, Andy Farrell, and Phil Clark. So I was lucky enough to get a job on the bench, and you're right, I got suspended for 2 matches, an absolute piece of out-and-out thuggery got me a 2-match suspension, and Paul Sirenen viciously threw his head at my elbow, which I still can't strain that arm now, the dirty bastard. But I was on the bench, and after probably 16, 17 minutes, the call came down, get Barrie ready is going on, and when I got on the field, the ball got knocked on. We got in the scrum, and these Aussies are giving me a bit, you know, you're on now, you're going to get it, you're going to get it. We got the ball, we got a penalty, and I moved everybody out the way, and I said, give me this ball, and I ran at Paul Sirenen and Paul Harrigan, the chief, who was an ex-heavyweight boxer, and Ian Roberts, and they were, you know, physically trying to dominate. And when we look at what we've got to do now, and Tom mentioned it now, we've got to bring that right level of physicality and meet fire with fire. But on that day, I thought I'm either going to get it all game, or I'm going to let them know I'm not going to take any shit off nobody, because I'm an Oldhamer. I'm used to losing. I'm used to going down. It's just in what capacity you do.
That's our Barrie, isn't it? And yesterday you burst onto the international scene with Wales, didn't you? I mean, we saw the clip at the start, free running. You know, it was 1995 World Cup, wasn't it? So what was your introduction to the world of international rugby, and how did you come up against the Aussies first?
Yeah, I've had a lot of battles against the Aussies over the years. A lot of them have been for Wales. You know, there was a split with England and Wales, so a lot of the Humdinger battles was England and Australia. I wasn't lucky enough to be involved in them, but you know, probably the one standout was at the semi-final for Wales in I think the 2000 World Cup when we played Australia in the semi-final. Nobody gave us a chance at all. And it was a little bit like what Scully said on the tape there. We played our way. We went out and we knew that we couldn't beat them physically, or we couldn't stay with them physically, so we decided to just chance our arm, throw the ball away a little bit, and try to stay in the contest with them. We had the likes of Lee Breers was in there and Kieran Cunningham. And for 60 minutes we were in front against them. We just run out of steam towards the end, and I think that's a really important lesson for us to know, that the games are so different at the moment in Australia and the UK. And if we try and go into the 3 test series and try and play exactly the same way that the Australians will come out second best, it's about playing our style of football, but with that physicality as well.
And for the forwards, you've got to match that physicality, haven't they? As Barry's done, as you know, talk about Scully, you know, the pack's got to meet them. But for the backs, you've got to be creative in the most pressured situation you've come across, haven't you? They're in your face, I imagine, quicker than you've ever faced in club rugby.
Yeah, look, anyone who plays international rugby at that level, you know it's twice as fast as a normal game, and you know that you've got to keep your calm in really heated situations. You need the likes of people like Barrie and the bigger forwards to match them physically. That's the first and most important thing. But it's about, you know, your spine, just keeping the head, making sure that they play that the way you want to play. You move them around a little bit. You put the ball in the right places on last players, and you try and stay in that contest. But you know, again, if we go at them and try and say, you know, we're just going to match them at their game, we'll come out second best.
And Barry, in that match, you won that first test at Wembley, didn't you? But we ended up losing the second two. And the story hasn't it been so near yet so far when Scully talked about, you know, losing all 3 tests by just a couple of points. How fine is that line, and what can England do to make sure they come out on top?
It's a good question, isn't it? It's a good question, and one that everybody's got probably their own opinion on. And I think back to the last test series against Australia. I played in 3 Ashes series, and I played in the last one I've never really, I'll phrase this right, I've never been that upset after a game that I could cry. But after those 3 games in 2003, I could have wept because we were almost there. It was so frustrating, and my mum's just told me that when Adrian Morley got sent off after 11 seconds, she got stuck in some traffic on the way to the game, and when she heard somebody'd been sent off, she thought it was me. I was on the bench, and I'd done well. I got sent off before I got on the field, but yeah, my debut, we beat Australia with 12 men. Sean Edwards got sent off after about 20 minutes, and Jonathan Davis scored a magnificent try. What a player he was, Jiffy. Scored a wonderful try in the corner. And then the next one, again, a 2-1 defeat, but that 3-1 defeat was a real kick in the teeth. And maybe it was a point in our development that we needed to take a step back and think, how do we get the best out of the players that we've got in this country? It's not, for me, it's not great to see players like Tom go and ply the trade in Australia, and in 11 years we've lost him, we've lost his experience, we've lost his ability, but I don't blame anybody for going to play in Australia, in the NRL, to become the best they can be. You know, the standard of living and the finances is a separate thing, but to be at that level, and that elite level, week in, week out, has made Tom the player he is. We haven't got enough of those. We've got 17 or 18, but unfortunately what happens is we lose a couple of players and we end up playing loose forward at standoff. We end up playing a centre at full back, and you know, it's sometimes trying to get the best players on the park in the 17, no matter what positions they're in.
And Iestyn, as you were at your peak, around your peak, you went to Rugby Union for a few years, didn't you? But you played in the Tri-Nations before that, and in that, we're talking about the same era, aren't we? You know, absolute top-class players who you might think, they'd be straight in the team if you're picking it today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it doesn't matter what code you play. You know, rugby league, rugby union. If you're playing against the Australians, you know you're playing against the best. And I think what we forget about Australia, isn't it, that in Australia it's the grade 1 athletes that they get first pick off. You know, in the UK we've got lots and lots of different sports. The Premier League's obviously massive, so a lot of our grade A athletes turn their hand to football first. So, you know, we've got to find a different way of playing, and we had to, when we were playing, find a different way of playing to beat the Australians rather than route one. And, you know, hopefully that's what we can do.
And belief is a massive thing, isn't it? And confidence and trust in your teammates. You're an agent now, aren't you? You represent some of the lads involved. Any insight into how they're thinking? Is there a belief that it could be the time the Ashes comes on?
Absolute belief. Yeah, I've spoken to a few of the guys. They're very strong-minded about, you know, getting an opportunity to create history in this country. It's not been here for 20 years. You know, listening to Tom when he was on stage, he's absolutely right. The ruck's so differently. It's refereed by 2 referees in Australia, 1 over here. You know, we've got to make sure we slow that ruck down, which I know they're doing a lot of work on, the England boys, just to try and frustrate them and get them complaining. And I think if we do that, we've got a real chance this time.
And finally, Barrie, who are the people to watch out for? Who could be the match winners for England, but who do we need to be stopping for Australia?
Well, we've already talked about Herbie Farmworth, who's a fantastic, fabulous, silky but powerful centre. But the Aussies know all about him. They won't know anything about Mikey Lewis because they're ignorant of our game and they're arrogant as well. They don't pay us much credit, which is to our advantage. So Mikey Lewis, we've all got our own opinions on the team. I would have loved to have seen Jake Connor in the team somewhere because I think his lack of structure and his lack of predictability could have been something difficult for them to try and get over the top of. But they've got great players. The spine is great. Nathan Cleary is a once-in-a-generation player. So, you know, they have got an amazing team. We've got to win that first game. We've got to make sure that England win at Wembley, no matter what it takes, and then make the Aussies nervous. And the 17 players, and if Sean Wayne does what Sean Wayne can do, which is motivate and get those lads running through brick walls, because every Wigan that goes through that system has this inbuilt ingrained DNA that is, I'll do what it takes. So hopefully England can get the first one at Wembley. We'll see what happens at Everton, and we've got 2 chances after Wembley, and Everton's the first one of them. So yeah, of course we've got a chance.
And just a final quick word on the revival at Oldham, being led by Fordy and the guys. You look across the room here, you see the strength of the Oldham community. Everybody's here reminiscing about the good old days, loving it. How do you feel about the prospect of this phoenix from the ashes and the chance of exciting future for Oldham lads playing for Oldham, playing for Great Britain again in future?
I'm really excited, and I'm lucky enough to have played for Oldham. I did 3 years at Oldham before I went to Wigan. I was really proud to do it. Watersheddings was such a special place, and Alex Gibbons, God bless him, he was my first introduction to it all. And you know, I always remember him saying, "Barrie, it's a shithole, but it's our shithole," and nobody likes coming, so we've got to use that to our advantage, and we did. It's always wet, it was always raining, and it was always hostile. We were talking about Harry Brereton at the table. Who in the room remembers Harry Brereton? Didn't matter whether you were on the home team or the away team, he gave shit to everybody, didn't he? But yeah, it's brilliant what Mike and Bill and the rest of the team are doing there, and we're all supportive of it. It would be fantastic to see Oldham at the top table. I think everybody recognises it's just a little bit too early for the progression of the town, but the infrastructure is there. The base at the bottom is better now than it's ever been. Waterhead, St Anne's, Saddleworth, and then, you know, some of the others that are also, I'm going to say, Limeside and Limehurst, is it? Sorry, yeah. There's a couple of others, but kids now are aspiring to play for Oldham. And I text Mike. I was out walking the dog one Sunday afternoon. I saw a young kid on his bike with an Oldham shirt on it, and I thought to myself, I texted him, I said, I've not seen that for about 20 years, so the town's going in the right direction. We've all got to get on board. I've not been as much as I would like to myself, but we've all got to get on board, and hopefully they can get up there to the top division.
And just to follow on from the energy and optimism that Mike and Bill and everybody involved with Oldham have got, and I think what you've got to do, haven't you, in professional sport, you've got to try and reach for the stars, and that's exactly what Oldham are doing at the moment. And they were really confident about getting into the Super League, a lot more confident than I was, but it was just the energy that you got from them that we can actually achieve this, and I don't think we've had that in Oldham for a long, long time, so it's I'm super excited about what's to come next there.
Iestyn and Barrie, thanks for your time.